All right, here we are, everyone, with our next flip video in our political geography unit that discusses the morphology of a state and how the morphology of a state can cause conflict. Morphology is going to be the shape of the state. So looking at, and this is going to be a little bit of a sub-question underneath our general exploration into why boundaries cause conflict. So as I just mentioned, the morphology of the state is the shape of the state. And the simple shape of the state can cause conflict, just in and of itself, the way in which it's shaped. A couple different shapes of states that we need to know. An elongated state, we'll put elongated on the left-hand side, is a long and narrow state. So two key examples, you notice that you can be elongated vertically, as is the case with Chile, or you could be elongated horizontally, as is the case with the country of Gambia. As you can imagine, in a vertical state such as Chile or Gambia, it's going to be quite difficult for the government to ensure unity. As if you look at the case with Chile, the northernmost cities of Chile, as opposed to the southernmost cities of Chile, are incredibly far from one another, likely facing different geographic climates and different geographic challenges. Moreover, an elongated state is that's going to essentially make a country vulnerable to attack, in the sense of, well, let me back that up. Not so much vulnerable to attack, but you can have incredibly long borders, political boundaries, to which you must attend. Border control, you must have, you are subject to the political forces of all of the states that surround you. So an elongated state ensures that you have elongated borders, which can often pose challenges. On your notes, ensure that you're also taking down not just what it says here on the slide, but as I'm explaining why these shapes of states, why the morphology of the state can cause conflict, do ensure that you're adding that information to your state as well, to your notes as well. Secondly, there can be a fragmented state. A fragmented state is when a state is in several discontinuous pieces. So there is not continuity between, there are different parts of the state. Key example that you probably are less familiar with is in fact India. So despite the fact that you're likely familiar with India's general shape of the state, but if you look in the top right-hand corner of the northeastern region of India, there was a contested region. We talked on the western border about the Kashmir region, where there's violence between Muslims and Hindus in Pakistan. But the partition of India left some territorial conflicts in the northeastern border region as well. So you'll see that the top right region. You'll see the zoomed out map, the larger map. The zoomed in map, you can see that between Bangladesh and there is some territory that Bangladesh claims, whereas there's other territory that the Indian state claims. So India itself is actually in a fragmented state. Angola is another example of a fragmented state. You see a tiny little part of Angola called Cabinda, which is another part of the fragmented state. Similarly, fragmented state poses problems for control and for just general governance, that this part of your state is completely separated from the rest. So not illogical that there are challenges maintaining the control over the state and ensuring that fragmented piece of the state remains part of your state, period. And this is where it gets a little complicated between a perforated state and an enclave. So the word perforated, actually, you can think about perforated as just little holes punched into. So your loose leaf paper on the left-hand side of it, if you have a notebook and where the paper is perforated, then there are little holes punched in the left-hand border to ensure that you can easily tear it out. Key there being perforated. You could even write this down if you'd like to. Perforated on the left-hand side, let's put little holes punched into, because that ensures we understand that the perforated part has a part of the perforated state has a small state within it. Looking at the map, before I go any further, here is a map of the country of South Africa. South Africa is a perforated state because you'll note that Lesotho and Swaziland, I'm going to move this picture over just a bit so you can see a little bit better. Lesotho and Swaziland are two states that exist within South Africa. Therefore, South Africa, the surrounding nation that's displayed here in green, is perforated because they have two autonomous countries, two autonomous states within them. So the perforated state is the state that encompasses another state. That's an incomplete definition here. Let's fix that as we go. That a state that encompasses another state. So there's encompasses means to completely surround. Two key examples the perforated state here would be South Africa. That's the one I'm going to show you, as well as Italy, and I'll show you why momentarily. So perforated state is the one that encompasses the rest of the state. Lesotho and Swaziland, on the other hand, are what are called enclaves, because Lesotho and Swaziland, just like we talked about ethnic enclaves, were little groups within, little sections within a city. The enclave is the section, is an autonomous state that is housed within another state. Other example of that, I'll come back to Italy. I thought I had my Italy map next, but apparently not. Italy has two autonomous states, three autonomous states actually, but two, San Marino and the Vatican. Two small, again, autonomous states within, so therefore technically Italy is considered a perforated state. Another type of state, another shape of a state is called a prorupted state. A prorupted state is one that has a large projecting extension of land. Let's look at the example there of Namibia. Okay, you'll notice in Namibia, I know you can't see the arrow on this part, but if I'd be circling, envision me circling Namibia right now. And you can see that for the vast majority, Namibia seems to be sort of continuous. And then you have that little sliver in the top right-hand corner of land that is prorupted outside of the continuous state. That is called the proruption. Typically, proruptions occur when a state is trying to gain access to a resource, namely access to water. So proruptions can ensure that a state is not, in fact, landlocked. So if you look at the Democratic Republic of the Congo, you'll see that if they did not have that little small part of land, that proruption, getting them to the Atlantic Ocean, then the Democratic Republic of the Congo would in fact be landlocked, meaning entirely surrounded by land. That is not a position a country typically wants to be in, because you are subject entirely to the forces that surround you. Without sea access, you depend upon other countries for access to goods, access to trade, so on and so forth. So the prorupted state is one that has that projection or that extension of land, typically in order to gain access to resources, namely water. Another example of the state that is actually, well, let's go back for a second. The proruption, one of the problems too for the proruption is that the proruption itself is often vulnerable for attack, vulnerable to be taken advantage of by another country, because you have just a small sliver of land, again, very long exposed borders, just like we talked about with the elongated state. A compact state is actually what most people would consider to be the ideal round-shaped state. Do not worry about the hot question there. That would have been what we did if we had done this in class. So the compact state, think of it just like a round state. Think about women. Women carry little makeup mirrors sometimes in circles that are called their compact. So they're a little circle. Just think of the compact state as being as close to a circular state or round-shaped state. Does that mean that if a country needs to actually be in a perfect circle? No. But you'll notice with Kenya, you can see it doesn't have proruption. It's not elongated. It is not a perforated state. There's no autonomous state within it. It has no enclaves inside of it. Or it's not an enclave. It's not being surrounded by another country. So generally speaking, we could qualify Kenya as a round or compact state. This is generally considered to be the most effective shape of a state, and that's sort of a blanket term. I mean, what makes a state effective is hardly begins and ends with the shape of its borders. But compact states are generally more effective because they ensure that the government has greater access. There's going to be more equitable distribution of, say, supplies and resources if the government is in a large compact. It is almost an easier way to govern, and it's easier to instill a sense of nationalism when people are sort of physically connected in a greater way. So that would be the compact state. I mentioned this before, so this is the second piece of the puzzle. I'm putting this differently because an enclave technically isn't a shape of a state in some senses, but it describes the existence of the state. So this is the corollary to the perforated state. Perforated, punched out. So it's the one that surrounds. It has holes punched out in it. I know that's a silly way to remember it, but it's a little bit helpful. Perforated state encompasses enclaves, okay? When a country is completely surrounded by another country, but it is not ruled by it. So Lesotho and Swaziland have autonomy. They have sovereignty. They are not ruled by the justice system or the political system of South Africa. Therefore, these are considered enclaves, okay? Similarly, similarly, would be an example of an exclave. Okay, an exclave is the part of the nation's territory that it's completely separate from the main body. Let's go back. Okay. We mentioned this with a fragmented state. So the part of the Cabinda, the part of Angola that is fragmented from the rest of the state, that would be considered the exclave. So another example that's not too far from home here would be Alaska or Hawaii, the part of the nation that is completely separated from the main body. Alaska is an exclave. Hawaii would be an exclave. Another example from would come from Europe. So you see in the bottom map there that Europe's on the left-hand side. We're up in northern Europe in the Baltic region. You see that there is the area, it's a little blurry there, but the area that's in beige, Kaliningrad, is actually an exclave of Russia. So Russia owns that specifically for access to the Baltic Sea. The sea that's farther north in Russia is often very difficult. It's very cold, and Kaliningrad provides much better trading opportunities for Russia, so they will maintain that exclave. Azerbaijan also has an exclave. So you see the country of Azerbaijan in the Middle East, bordering Turkey and Iran and Georgia. That Azerbaijan has an exclave that separates this small area from the rest of the country. So, some other examples that we mentioned here, I just listed most of these exclaves, but we have, I guess you can just use this if you need to, but another example of some of the exclaves and their controlling boundaries. Okay, this is going to be a little bit different than a normal flipped video. There's a neat YouTube video that's called Bizarre Boundaries. It goes into a little bit more detail about when countries have different boundaries. So what I'd like you to do, you see your analysis questions for me are actually going to come, 1, 2, and 3 are going to come from this Bizarre Boundaries video. So you're going to pause this video. You're going to cut and paste that URL into your browser. I want you to watch that video and then answer these 4 questions. The first 3 come from the video. The last one is from my piece, the actual lecture part. So go ahead and do that. You can complete the analysis questions on a separate sheet of paper, and I will see you in class.